late 1960s and early 70s were an incredible era of automotive design across the board, with stiff competition coming from all automotive brands. Ferrari, never to be outdone, released an all-new six-cylinder sports car made to compete against the Porsche 911 in not just performance, but price as well. And while when the Dino was first released in 1969, there was a lot of controversy as to whether it was a real Ferrari or not, but today there is no argument. The stunning design of the Ferrari Dino has withstood the test of time. Like all beautiful Ferraris, the Dino was designed by Pininfarina and the bodywork was produced by Scaglietti, with chief designer Leonardo Fioravanti. He gave the all-new mid-engine sports car a very sexy and curvy Coke bottle body, which was wildly different from anything produced before. This kick-started the exotic era of the Ferrari design, which would influence many subsequent models. A lot of people like to kind of argue over the name Dino because in the beginning, Enzo Ferrari did section out the Dino as kind of a separate brand from Ferrari. And there's a little controversy over whether it was because of his son Dino and naming it after him, or the whole, it's a six-cylinder and he didn't want a six-cylinder street car with his Ferrari branding on it. And the truth is, it's actually kind of both are true. So in early 1950s, Enzo's son Alfredino was helping, he wanted to do a six-cylinder race car. And he passed away in 1956. And so to honor his memory, Enzo in 1957 came out with the first six-cylinder race car Ferrari, the 156 F2. And that was a successful car, so there came a series of Dino badged Ferrari race cars. Famous cars, including the 196, 166, 206 SP, and finally, in the late 60s, Enzo decided that they needed something to compete with the Porsche 911 and something manageable for drivers, something with less cylinders. So they did decide to come out with the Dino, the six-cylinder car. And he branded it Dino. The actual wording Dino right there it's part of Alfredino's signature, so it definitely is to pay homage to his son, but he also did want to separate them out because he very much, Enzo, loved his 12-cylinder cars and really didn't want the two cars mixed together. One of the arguments people use trying to say that the Dino is not a Ferrari is because the engines were assembled by Fiat. And while that is definitely true, Enzo sublet the work to Fiat because he needed so many produced, and at the time the Ferrari factory didn't have the means to produce that many engines at once, so they allowed Fiat to assemble it, and then Fiat was able to use the same engines in their Fiat Dino. So yes, the engines were assembled by Fiat, but the body and the design and everything is all Ferrari. And the engines in this car were also used by famous cars like the Lancia Stratos, so they kind of have a place in history all of their own, just in the use of these engines and what they've done for the automotive history. But an interesting thing about the Dino is early on, the Dino did not have any Ferrari badging. Even the cam covers say Dino on them, the wheels say Dino. These do have the Cavallino, the prancing horse, as the center cap, but originally they would have said Dino. The only place you can actually find the word Ferrari on this car happens to be in the driver's door jamb. There's the data plate that says Ferrari, just like in any Ferrari. It says Ferrari, and then it has all the information, the build date, the VIN, all of that. And then also, because this is a US model, in the engine bay here, there is the Ferrari data plate as far as the smog emissions. So on most Dinos, that's the only place you're ever gonna find the words Ferrari. So the street-going Dinos started with the 206, and like a lot of Ferrari's numbering system, it stood for 2.0-liter six cylinders. So the first cars, there was about 156 206 produced, and they were all aluminum bodies, which was a little more expensive and harder to build. So after the first run of 206, they switched over to the 246 Dino. And the 246, they increased it to 2.4 liters, so it gave it a little extra power. This car has about 195 horsepower, which made up because now they're steel bodied. So they're a little heavier, but they also have a bit more power. And then in 1971, they started producing the GTS. Before that, all of the cars were coupes, but in 71, they came out with the targa tops. And the cool thing about the targa tops is they just easily pop off. I mean, you just unlatch. I already unlatched the other side. You unlatch this side, and then you can just pull it off. And not only can you pull it off real easy, it has this nice notch in here, so you can flip it behind the seats right here and tuck it right in, and it just fits perfectly right behind the seats. So you just pull it off, you set it behind the seats, and slide it in, and you're good to go. And it's super easy, and I forgot to relatch it, but when you do it correctly, you just slide it right here, and it goes behind these seats, and you're good to go. And it takes one person, and it's pretty light. I mean, anybody could do it, which makes it really easy, because if it starts raining all of a sudden, you just grab it, pop it back on, and you're all good. So that's one of the things I like, because convertible tops, especially with like the 355s, they can be a pain in the butt. So having a targa is so easy to use, and I really like targa top cars. Unlike the V12 Ferraris, because obviously it's a much smaller 6-cylinder car, it's a lot lighter. So when you're driving the Dino, it doesn't have power steering, but you're not trying to lug it around like you are something like a Daytona that doesn't have power steering. That is a beast when you're trying to turn it at low speeds. Whereas the Dino, it's not an issue trying to park, parallel park, anything like that. It's very light. And when you're driving, because it has a very good kind of like center of gravity, because it's a mid-engine car, because it's low and small and compact, it really drives like a go-kart. You really feel in tune with the car, which is really fun. I mean, it's nicely balanced. It's just an overall great car to drive. And while 195 horsepower, it's not the fastest thing on the road, especially in 2022 when you have 800 horsepower supercars. But because it has shorter shift points, because the engine is right here, it sounds amazing and it feels great to drive, and you really feel like you're going a lot faster than you are. A lot of times, it's nice to have it, because when you have an 800 horsepower supercar, you get too fast too quick, and that's where you get in a lot of trouble. Whereas this, you feel like you're going faster than you are, so you're not really risking getting so many tickets. So I actually prefer cars like this. Plus, they have really cool, unique little quirks. Like one of my favorite things on Dinos is the visors. So normally you have a visor that flops down, right? But no, Ferrari had to do something special. So they have these little visors right here where you pull down, and it has a little suction cup, and you stick it to the windshield, and that's your sun visor, which is just so cute to me. And a lot of people don't even know they're there because they're tucked right back up here. But yeah, you got two little sun visors, and it's just the cutest thing ever. I personally think that this kind of anthracite dark gray color on a Dino is one of the ultimate colors. This over the black interior, or another favorite of mine is like a dark blue over a tan, or like a saddle interior, a tobacco colored interior. But those, out of all the colors for a Dino, are my two favorite. And this car in particular, it's an older restoration. So it was done in the early 2000s, right around 2006. And it's really held up very well. The paint is great, the interior is great. It does have a couple little flaws in the paint, nothing crazy, no big dents or dings or anything, but like a little scratch here or there. But that's kind of what you're gonna get after many years of a well-loved car that you drive once in a while. But it presents so nicely. And the interior, how the owner did it with the Daytona seat inserts, he had these dark gray inserts put in that just contrast beautifully with the exterior of the car. The whole black interior with just those gray inserts, and then the black everything else inside, it looks stunning. It's not an original Ferrari insert color, but with this car, it works beautifully. And with this car, it did originally come in yellow, this particular one, which that's fine. I mean, yellow Dinos are nice, but I personally just love this color instead. And the nice thing is a lot of times throughout the years, the paperwork for these cars will disappear because especially in the 70s when they were more new, people just would throw out the paperwork. It wasn't that big of a deal, but now, years later, you want that history. You want to know where the car was and how it was maintained, and it just means so much. So this car comes with a huge binder of paperwork, and the invoices go all the way back to 1975, 74, 75, right basically when it was new. Not just that, it also has copies of the original import documents and like documents from Chinetti Motors when it was imported to Chinetti to the US. So it shows it was new in yellow with a black interior, and it had the power windows, and it gives all the information. So having all these documents and basically almost every invoice from new is something very hard to find, and it's really nice when you have it because you get that whole ownership chain and you know that it was well taken care of. The 70s was an incredible time for cars. In my opinion, some of the most beautiful cars ever came out in the 70s. And Ferrari was really on top of it then. I mean, two of my favorite street cars, the Dino and the Daytona, came out at the same time, and they're so wildly different from each other, but in such incredible ways. So I'm really happy I've had a chance to show you guys this car and give you a little history on this and the Dino in general. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe and stay tuned because we got a lot more stuff coming very soon.